A very good evening to one and all. Welcome back to the Thursday sessions on building productivity mindset with Sagar Amlani, the productivity explorer, and Kalpesh Raichura. So, welcome back to the seventh Thursday, and where we continue our discussions on building productivity mindset. And I think it's been a wonderful journey, Sagar. 7 weeks, and we've spoken about so many different things that can help people build productivity mindset. So I think this is a great conversation, and I should compliment you that I'm enjoying these sessions and lots of takeaways with every session that happens.
Thank you, Kalpesh, and thank you, listeners. Yes, Kalpesh, you were just about to say something.
Yeah, I was just welcoming you, and I wanted to maybe start by doing a quick recap. So Sagar, we spoke about a very interesting topic, which you kept wondering for people that can quality be inspected, and I think there was tremendous participation that we got from people.
Yeah,
Uh, so may I request you to do a quick summary for us on can quality be inspected before we move on to discussing what we're going to talk today.
absolutely. So, yeah, it was an amazing session, Kalpesh, and the conversation we had was really enriching, and the feedback is really amazing. So, getting on to the point, can quality be inspected? And we discussed about various factors regarding when we do inspection or when we are checking, we are actually checking the product. We are checking the product as per the specifications given by the customers. Sometimes not given by the customer, but defined by the organizations themselves, which means it's the product that is being inspected for the quality which is built within the product, which means you can produce quality and you can inspect the product. And to produce quality, you need to have systems in place, you need to have methodologies in place so that you ensure that the quality comes out correct. And that brings us to the topic of today, where we talk about first time right. Because now that we have learned that quality cannot be inspected, it's the product that is being inspected. And in case if you think that inspection gives you quality, you're looking at losses in inspection, and quality inspection at the end of the tunnel is actually post-mortem. So let's produce quality. And how do we do that? By first time right. So that's the topic of today, first time
Wonderful.
right. So, any idea what exactly is first time right? Kalpesh, can you share any life experience that you have for first time right? Maybe it's any example, any industry.
I think lots of examples, Sagar, and I should compliment. I think from the way the world is evolved, that today when you order for something that you want, and in this COVID scenario, even when you order something online, you actually are very clear with regards to the experience of it. So, if I may say, uh, I ordered a pair of ear dots from Amazon
Mhm.
last week, and the exact definition, prescription, or details which were given on the site and the product that I received, amazing. No questions, no doubts. The whole entire experience was so holistic and even maybe taken for granted that no, if I'm going to order this, I'm going to actually get this. There's no doubts that I have on that. So I
Mhm.
think there's lots of experiences like that of having first time right things. And as a customer, I enjoy that.
Great. So, let's first understand, why do we need first time right? What is the need or why is it required? So, the first point that brings me to the importance, or to express why do we need first time right, is we save time. Because when you do things right the first time, you don't have to do a rework, you will not have to go again and try doing it, you will not have to invest more time correcting it. That brings us to the second point of why, which is it saves money. Because the minute you go to correct it, the minute you go to, rectify it, or you're redoing it, your money is lost. And at the same time, it also loses resources, because if you have to do rework, go again, bring it, pick it, drop it, whatever, in Amazon or in any other product, you are actually investing the resources, which will be all three: time, money, manpower, and sometimes even machine. Now, all this will lead to one big thing, and that will be loss of reputation. I mean, today we all talk about building brand, creating brand value. We also have started talking about personal branding, because work from home, gig economy is all about building your personal brand. And if you fail to build your personal brand, that's disaster. Now, that, Kalpesh, does not mean that failures are not accepted. We need to understand the difference between failures and first time right. When we talk about first time right, it does not mean that you cannot fail. You can
Wow.
always fail, but not in front of the customer. You can always fail, but not in front of the audience. You can always fail, but not by putting your reputation at stake. And that is first time right.
Beautiful. I think Sagar very well said. The question that a lot of people think about is, if I'm talking about first time right, do I stop evolving? And I think that's what you answered very well. And Sagar, if I may also add to what you just said, first time right, what you answered from an organization's perspective. I'm saying first time right even from a customer perspective, if I have to look at it. For me, as a customer, the first time right brings a lot more loyalty for me to that brand or to that organization that I'm talking about. The first time right also means that I can plan what I want to do based on the company that I'm working with. So if your organization is a supplier to my organization, and I know that what you're going to deliver is a first time right for me, I have the ability to commit or progress further or do what I want to do basis on the promise that you make. And I think as a customer, from a customer perspective as well, your brand loyalty, your market capitalization, your goodwill is a lot more at stake uh, when you get your first time right.
Absolutely, Kalpesh. Absolutely. So, while you have touched upon that area of customer, let me ask few questions to our listeners. Okay. There are 34 babies born every minute in India. 34 babies are born every minute in India. Will it be okay for the nurse to change one baby out of those 34s into a different placement or a different basket? What would be the reaction of those parents? Okay. Second example, you are destined to go to Boston and you'll end up in Germany. How would you feel? It's a business trip. It's not a holiday, of course. Holiday you would enjoy, but without the visa, you would be stuck again. Now, something that all of us get impacted. Imagine you're supposed to get your salary on the first of every month and you got it. But there is some calculation error and you're short of a few change in your salary. What would be your reaction? It'll pinch you, right? Again, a very simple thing. You are going in a lift and the liftman presses the wrong floor. Or just for laugh, you're on a honeymoon with your wife and the hotel guy gives you the keys to a wrong room. Now, how embarrassing would that situation be? Right?
That's pathetic.
Right? It's pathetic. So now when I give all these examples, we feel that, this cannot go wrong or this should not go wrong. What if the pilot, while landing, forgets to open the landing gear? He's done a mistake. That's okay. It's not first time. Will it be accepted? It'll cost the life of 180 or 200 or maybe even more passengers. So that is what I call first time right. So as far as the definition, or if you really want to define what it is, I would say we need to get rid of these double standard mentality, because when we are at receiving end, we want everything perfect. When we are at receiving end, we want everything good quality. And when we are at a receiving end, we want everything. Hi, am I audible?
Yes, you're
Okay.
audible. I think.
So when we are at a receiving end, we want everything to be the lowest cost, the lowest possible cost. Now, see, this is exactly the experience that I am having when the light fluctuates. As in, as a customer, I'm doing a live and it's disturbing my session live. I'm not happy about it. And I'm going to definitely complain it to the space where I am. But that's an experience which a customer gets. So getting rid of these double standards is absolutely the thing to go. So first time right is a commitment given to yourself by you. I'll repeat it again for the sake of everyone. Getting first time right or doing first time right is actually getting rid of those double standards, and it's a process or it's a concept of personal commitment given by yourself to you. So if you expect things to be the perfect one when you receive them, if you want Amazon to deliver you the perfect goods, the perfect quality, the perfect packaging, and the perfect price, imagine and remember it's a cycle, and you are somewhere a receiver in that cycle, and at somewhere you are the person who is giving in that cycle. So as much as you want to receive good quality, give yourself a personal commitment today that from next time onwards, you will ensure first time right for all your customers, be it at home, be it at your office, or be it outside anywhere. Are you ready to give me that commitment? If yes, just type in your answers in the chat box. I'm looking forward for your answers.
Great, Sagar. I think that was well said. And Sagar, I remember a story which I use in my session that I do on excellence. Okay, this was a story about a sculptor. So he
Mm-hmm,
was creating a sculpture which was about 20 feet of height,
mm-hmm,
and the the whole artwork was almost ready. And while it was there, he actually started working on another piece.
mm-hmm.
So one of the directors, or the guy who was looking after, or manager, comes across and says, "What are you doing?" So he's like, "No, I'm creating another one." And he's like, "Why? What happened? This sculpture looks almost ready." And the guy said that it's ready, but there is a chip which got cut off near the eye of the sculpture. So he said, "But this is 20 feet of height, and nobody can up there see it, whether that kind of mistake is there or not there." And he says, "But so why do you want to do it? Nobody can see it. Nobody will even come to know about it." And the guy said, "But sir, I know it.
Absolutely.
And hence, I will do it what it takes to make sure that what I've delivered is the right one." Now, I know it doesn't fit into the first time, right? But it also commits to, when you're finally delivering it to the customer. So when he's going to finally deliver it to the end user, or put it up, at the location, he's completely assured that what he's given is his 100%, and what is given to the customer is first time right.
And Kalpesh,
So
I would definitely say it is first time right, because the sculpture is a 20-foot sculpture, which means it's not going to be put up or it's not going to be used every single day by everyone as a commodity item, which means he's creating it to be placed either in a city or in some office or some decorative piece. So it is the first time that the customer is buying. So it is the first time. You're absolutely right. Perfect example,
wonderful.
Kalpesh. So
Wonderful.
taking that example, let me share one more short story. There was a guy who was working in construction industry, and his job was to construct the house. So while he went to, I'm sure everybody has heard it, but let me put it in a perspective of first time, right? So he went to his boss a day and said, I'm done with my job and I would like to resign and move on in life. I would love to retire. And his boss said, fair enough. Do me a favor. Build one more house for me and that will be your last job. I promise. And the guy was, okay, I'll do that. He created that house, but he created it half heartedly. He created the design, but he created it half-heartedly. And at the end, when he created the whole house and the things were done, the interiors were done, he locked the house and did the refurbishing, interiors, and everything was done. He locked it and went to his boss to give him the keys. That, sir, these are the keys, and I've completed the house, and you can give it. And you know what the boss said? He said, this is my gift from my side to you for your retirement. And the guy was shocked because he did not put his heart in that house. It was half heartedly done, which brings us to a point that it's not the first time right only for the first time. It is first time right every time because your product, this pen, for example, is maybe the 1 millionth pen for me as a manufacturer. But for the customer, it's the first pen. So the first time right is not with your perspective as a manufacturer, but first time right is with the perspective of a customer receiving that product and not you as a manufacturer. Sorry for that confusion. But first time right is a perspective from the customer side. And we need to ensure that that is met.
So I think Sagar, that was a beautiful example where I think you mentioned about the commitment of doing what you're doing, uh, with wholeheartedly. The whole question therefore remains is that, yeah, I mean, we understand first time right, uh, needs to be there, but how does one ensure that?
It's very simple, Kalpesh. The definition or the statement given by the quality guru, Philip Crosby, says it all. I'll just quote unquote him. People can't do it right the first time if they don't know what it is. Or if I may take the liberty and say, people can't do it right the first time if they don't know what right is.
Okay.
So, which brings us to a point that when we are talking about first time right, it's about creating the mindset of an individual, mindset of the team, mindset of the organization. Because always remember, GIGO. GIGO is not applicable only in terms of data. GIGO is not applicable only in terms of IT or the software part, but it's also applicable in the human psychology. Garbage in, garbage out. If you don't train your teams, if you don't expect your teams, and if you don't have your own personal commitment for the first time right, you don't expect it from others. And that's where the organizations need to understand creating the right mindset. Now, how that can be done? There are two ways to do that. There are methodologies, various methodologies, but let's talk about the two simple methodologies that we have. First one is PDCA, which is plan, do, check, act. And the second one is define, measure, analyze, improve, and control, which is also known as a DMAC cycle. Yeah, I think we've lost Kalpesh till the time he comes back. Let me share more points for this. So, when we talk about defining the right, when we talk about defining what is required to be first time right, it talks about having the right planning. When we talk about planning, it does not only mean about the planning that we need to do, but it also talks about what level of planning. And that I would put it in a very simple thing. We need to have a aim or a focus. Now, here, when I say aim, we need to be aware about customer requirements. We need to be aware about customer specifications, and we need to be aware about the market scenarios, because you can't produce something which is outrightly expensive, which is outrightly not valuable for the customers. And hence, the planning stage is very important, which also means that you have to define your goals, your objectives about how do you want to achieve first time right. So, when we talk about manufacturing, let me give that example to you. When we manufacture a product, we go through a series of design and development. And in design and development, failure is accepted. So, what we do is, let's say we receive a product and we receive the specification. When we receive the specification from the customer, for example, let's say this pen, we start analyzing the inputs required for this pen in terms of the 4M, which is man, method, material, machine, etc., which is the resources. We also evaluate the planning requirement for specification. We also start looking into the requirement of getting engaged with the team and understand their capacity or their capability in terms of manufacturing that product. So the planning stage has to be so detailed that we really need to go in depth, understand the requirement of the customer, the capability of our team, the capability of our suppliers, the capability of our machines to give that output. And once you have done that, you have to go into the stage two, which is trying out, testing, doing. That is stage two. Welcome back, Kalpesh.
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry, there's some
So I
fluctuation
was,
today.
that's absolutely fine. We're talking about first time right, and yes, it's an experience that we are getting. So I was talking about the planning stage where, to get first time right, we have to talk about the planning. Now the stage two comes about doing. So now when you have known the plan, the strategic goals, the objectives, the specification, the process capability, and the team's capability, you have identified if there are any gaps. So during the planning stage, you have done all that. One thing that you always do when you want to get first time right is what we call FMEA, which is failure mode effective analysis, a tool which helps you to identify any probable failure that can happen, and it also helps you to identify if you can create a control mechanism for it, which means you can have the past experiences recorded in that tool. So when you're creating a new product or when you're creating new things, you ensure that you don't fail. For example, I'm sure all of you have seen Air Crash Investigation series, which comes on Discovery and National Geographic. If you've keenly observed, what they do is whenever there is a crash, it could be a human error, it could be a mechanical error, or it could be something else. They go in depth for investigation, which takes 3 months, 6 months, and sometimes even years together. But they ensure that they reach to the root cause of the problem and not just pointing fingers. Let me share one example. I'm sure you all are aware about Virgin Atlantic trying to go to the space, but they failed, and that cost the life of the pilot. Now they started the investigation there, and they started to see what went wrong. On the initial phase, it came out that the pilot had actually released the flips or the flaps at the back premature or early. Going forward, they thought no, it was the screen which went blank and was rebooted was the problem. But the person who was doing the root cause analysis was very, very smart. He still was not accepting it because he was also watching the records of the pilot. The pilot had a record of more than 1800 hours of flying. The pilot had a record of 200 hours in the trial run or in the dry run or the simulator. And that's when the inspector said, I don't doubt the capability of the pilot. Going forward, they checked. To cut the long story short, they identified that the problem was no mechanism to stop the pilot from putting the lever before the time. There was no mechanism to highlight to the pilot that he has pressed the lever before time. There was no mechanism to stop that mistake from happening. And overlooking that mistake is itself an error. So first time right also talks about building Pokayoke in your systems. First time right also talks about ensuring that the planning is so robust that you idiot proof your mechanism, your processes, your manpower, and your machines. And that will ensure that you have first time right always. Any thoughts, Kalpesh?
No, I think that is wonderful, Sagar. And I think in the world of automation today, while there are a lot of things which are which are building Pokayoke in their system. So, for example, today I can't unlock my laptop unless I've put the right code. Whatever combinations I put till the time that's right, it will not. The ATM cards today they work on the same philosophy or everywhere. And I think the example that you gave on the air crash investigation, that we are moving from a manual control world into building systemic controls, because the systemic controls are something which is a long term and does not need human intervention every time. So you're actually using human intelligence in building the system rather than for every episode of making the product or the service delivered. So I think
Absolutely.
that's something very interesting.
Absolutely. And that brings us to the next stage of doing and checking it. So while we have a robust plan, while we have set up a robust system, we have AI mechanisms, but unless and until during the do stage of that PDCA cycle, we don't build in the measurement analysis or we don't build in the things to measure, we will have nothing to check. For example, in the air crash investigation, there was a black box that was built. There was a CCTV camera because it was a pilot run or it was a pilot takeoff trial. They had CCTV camera within the cockpit, and those CCTV cameras faced the pilots. One of them was facing the panel, and the other one was also facing outside the front of the aircraft and the back of the aircraft. So the data that was covered was fabulous, and that ensures them that yes, there was a loss of a pilot, and may his soul rest in peace. But what they are trying to ensure here is that the day when first commercial flight takes off, the day when first customer sits in that flight, it'll be first time right. And that's what we mean by first time right. You have ample number of trials. You fail in your trials. You have ample number of simulations. You keep failing in the simulator, but don't fail when you're on the racing track. Because when you're on the racing track and you fail, you not only cost the loss of time, money, resources, and reputation, but you can also lose life. And that pains a lot. So
No,
doing
absolutely.
it, measuring it is very important. So
Yeah. No, and I think what you said, Sagar, is correct, and therefore the whole industry is evolving, the customers are evolving, and even the service providers or the production, the manufacturers are evolving with the whole concept of doing the first thing first time right. I think, and and what you just gave as an example of doing what it takes as an experiment, doing what it takes to create. At the same time, even there, Sagar, if I do a deep dive from my example, you know, a lot of times I've seen that when you're bidding for a new, and I'm talking about a service industry. So when you're bidding for a new client and you're putting up your request for proposal or for the final bid that you want to win that deal, I have seen the business guys have nightmares, the business development guys and the sales people in creating those presentations and that storylines. And I have what I've witnessed is that the leader, and I've seen this in my governance meetings and the consulting that I'm doing, that the leader would say, you know what, we've now got the inquiry from this customer, let's create a pitch. My my first observation was, I said, that's the first failure point for you, because when you're just telling your team that, okay, create a presentation or create a sale pitch, what on what grounds are you all aligned to? What is that customer expecting? What is it that you have to deliver? What storyline are you going to create? Then once you've designed that framework and everybody's aligned to that framework, then it's about the format and the PPT versions that you want to do. I have seen so many of those to and fro's for that one presentation that it goes nightmares, and then people sit up to till the 10th hour. Then when they are supposed to submit the presentation by 11, till 10:30 there are edits which are happening, and everybody is exhausted by the time the presentation is submitted. And if you look at the root cause analysis, as you rightly use the word, is that you've not actually sat down and calibrated that what is that definition of right.
Absolutely.
What does my customer want? What do I have to deliver, and by when do I want to deliver? And once you've done that storyline, people who, tasks like these where you have multiple touch points to deliver one particular output, you need everyone to be together. So great. Hey, Vishal, thank you for the feedback. Yes, today the internet has given us a little ups and downs, but we're working on that.
Yes. So, Kalpesh, to answer that point, I have a very good example where I was working with an organization. The organization had to pitch a presentation to a vendor. Now, let me give you a scenario so that you understand the background. So, let's say company A is the customer, and I have to pitch it to them, and you are also the same person who is in the same field and a competitor. Now, let's say that you have 80% of business with company A, where I only do 20% of business with company A. And I've got a presentation to retain my business and justify to company A why they should retain my business. Now, I could have gone ahead and created a salesy pitch, reduced my cost down, increased my deliverables, a standard way of working, and got into a rat race, or as we call the dogs economy in the BCG matrix. What my team invented doing right was they used a strategy called AIM. Now, what does AIM stand for? It's AIM: aware, identify, measure. And once you have that strategy in place before you deliver, you are happen to hit the bullseye. So let me now explain you what we did by using this strategy of AIM, which is aware, identify, and measure. So we started getting the data to aware ourselves about what are the different businesses that Kalpesh has with company A, and what are the businesses we have with company A. We started to identify what are the parameters which identify the productivity or the improvement or the points for company A to see that their projects are working with the respective competitors. And we started to dig out data to do a measurement analysis in terms of, we started to take out that, let's say there are 4 portfolios with Kalpesh, which is 2020 owing to 80%, and there's only 1 portfolio with me. So there are 4 products with Kalpesh and 1 product with me. I started getting the data points and creating that measurables, showing the figures in the presentation to the customer. And you won't believe, Kalpesh, what happened in the end was, we not only bagged our own order in that deliverables, but we also got Kalpesh's company's order into our order, only because we could show that the 4 products that Kalpesh is handling have reduced to show their growth, or there is a reduction of 20%, 11%, 30%. Whereas 1 portfolio which we are handling for company A has grown by 35%. And the numbers were speaking in front of them, because the numbers were taken from their own website, from their own annual reports. And within that 45 minutes of presentation, Kalpesh, we not only were able to save our order, but we also bagged 100% business with them. I mean, that is the beauty when you actually have analyzed, identified, and measured, and you have a proper plan, and you focus it and you go there, you are always first time right. Now imagine the amount that I'm talking to is approximately 2 to 2.5 billion of business. Now that business for me to get over a long period of time is a huge amount. And when you get it first time right, when you don't have to travel to and fro, the whole team is not preparing presentation 2, 3, 4 times, it's an achievement. We've achieved something, and the best part is we also were able to increase our share of business without reducing our cost. So that's the benefit of first time right.
Beautiful, Sagar, and hearty congratulations, because I think that's the approach which matters.
So the example was not of Kalpesh and me, of course. It was just an hypothetical names that we took, because I could not name the companies for the viewers' benefit.
Right, no, got it. And what you said, Sagar, is also right. You know, if you look at the whole impact of not having it first time right.
Yeah.
So what happens when it's not first time right? The amount of, you know, losses that get incurred, the amount of experience that goes down, the amount of rework that happens in that whole experience is something that really, you know, takes you off the goal or off the aim that you mentioned. So I love the aim analogy there. So aware, identify, and measure. I think that's a good takeaway for all our audience as well. So
Yeah.
so that's a good aim.
Absolutely. So this is what brings us, to the end of today's session, where we talk about first time right, and we have shared the methodologies with them as a part of PDCA, or using other cycles, given them in examples like the babies in the nurse, the lift man, the airport. If all these are essentials in life thing, the same way should be in all other things that we do. Maybe it's an email, maybe we are putting up a comment. I mean, how many times do we experience that there are spelling mistakes in the summary on LinkedIn? I mean, it's a summary that defines you, and there's a spelling mistake. I mean, that's just an example of making it first time right. And having said all that, Kalpesh, I would leave the audience also with one more point to dwell upon, that I'm sure we all have heard about the recalls in the automotive industry. Now, you are driving a car. God forbidden, the brake lining is not correctly installed. What would happen? It's a life-threatening thing, which means that first time right is not only applicable to these kind of areas which are life-threatening, but first time right are applicable in everyday life. So let us repeat again the point that I said in the start, that first time right is a concept to eliminate double standards from our life. We should give back what we accept. We should give back what we are ready to receive, which means it's a personal commitment to ensure no deviations and no reason for a quality loss. Give yourself a commitment that whatever you do, it will be first time right. Whatever you do will be perfectly in sync with the requirement of the customer. Uh, Over to you, Kalpesh, for any thoughts that you can share on this one, or you
Right.
would like to add some points here.
Right. No, I think closing comments from my side, Sagar, will be the same, that first time right is more of an approach. So first time right, of course, you get it in your product and service, but when you use your, just ask yourself, why am I doing this? And I would like to close this on a very simple example, Sagar. Uh, so I've been a part of large organizations, and in a day, you end up getting nothing less than about 100, emails. And when you actually open those emails, I've come across, or even in the current scenario that I see, people send out their Excel sheets or their presentations or things which is attachment with maybe just one liner. Please find the monthly sales report for your reference. What has been the problem here is that, what do you want that person to open and check? And I actually asked this question to one of the senior head of quality. uh, he was the head of quality department, and he sent the entire quality report, and I said, so what do you want me to look at? Because when I opened the report, it had 5 Excel sheets. Each Excel sheet had multiple data points, and I looked at it and I said, what do you want me to understand out of it? So when I'm talking about a first time right, in the example that you just shared, why am I doing it? So if I'm doing that because I want people who read this report to give me a decision, to just be informed, to appreciate what I'm doing, what is my objective? And the minute I am present only to that fact and accordingly make an effort to write that summary in the body, I have achieved it. I have made life simpler for them to achieve what I want.
Yeah,
I
like
think I
one of our readers have just commented while you were saying, Kalpesh, it's clarity of purpose.
Yeah, I think Amina Sultana, thank you. Yes, the clarity of purpose. So I just want to leave people with that thought, that first time right is not only about the final product or the final service. It is the approach, that if I have even sent out an email, a lot of time you receive messages. Today it's the world of WhatsApp emoticons and messages. You just sometimes just put one word and ask somebody, and you leave the other person to understand the whole world of what do you want to know. All
Absolutely.
you need to do is make that first time right as an approach for your own self, because then you're getting what you want in return. So that's
Absolutely.
that's my comment.
No, no, Kalpesh, that's absolutely right. And that's what we mean by first time right. So just to summarize it, first time right is a concept. Use AIM as a methodology to ensure that you are aware, you identify, and you measure the requirements of your customer. First time right is not the perspective of a manufacturer, because you can be producing 100 products every day, but first time right is every time when the customer takes your product, it has to be right. Every time the customer takes your service, it has to be right. Every time you do anything, ensure, as Amina said, have clarity of purpose and ensure you understand what is right. And to leave a clue for all of you, what is right? Right is requirements of the customer, specifications of the customer, the quality of the desired product, and that is right. The output defined by the organization, that is right. So now we talked about Pokayoke, idiot proofing as one point which was identified to achieve first time right. I'm sure you are all excited to do that and to achieve first time right. So that will be our next session, idiot proofing, Pokayoke. And Amina, you're very right, doing it right very first time for avoiding rework. And that's what I will repeat it for Amina and for other listeners who have just joined us. If you do first time right, it will save you time, money, resources. It will also help you to save more loss of reputation, which means you will end up with more productivity, increased brand value and brand recognition, and of course, improved bottom line. So thank you very much for joining us. It was a pleasure to talk to you about first time right. Next time we talk about idiot proofing.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Stay safe, stay connected, and looking forward to interacting with you again.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Kalpesh.
Thank you, Sagar. Take care. Bye.